Hello and welcome to another edition of the Schmozcast. I'm Chandler here in the 103.5 The Sun community radio station with Anthony and Andre. Fellas, how we doing today?
11 out of 10.
Doing wonderful.
Great to hear that. All right, so today's show we'll be talking about kind of things that happened on Raw and Smackdown this week, and since we have Money in the Bank coming up around the corner here, we will be giving our top 3 favorite cash-ins thus far of Money in the Bank. So to start things off, I want to talk about SmackDown a little bit. Yet again this week, I personally like SmackDown better as a show than Raw. The show started off with Big Cass kind of interjecting himself between Daniel Bryan and Samoa Joe as they were things were getting heated between Daniel Bryan and Samoa Joe leading up to their main event match, which was the last spot in the men's Money in the Bank ladder match qualifier. So Big Cass comes out and basically says that he never really lost his opportunity. Daniel Bryan replaced him because of injury, but he never lost that opportunity, and he talked to Paige, and that she said it was going to be him versus Samoa Joe, and that he was cleared to return to in-ring competition. He came down limping with a crutch, but it turned out he was fine and tried to attack both Daniel Bryan and Samoa Joe. And what ended up happening was we had a triple threat in the main event for the last spot in the Money in the Bank match, where it was Samoa Joe, Big Cass, and Daniel Bryan. I thought not Samoa Joe, Big Cass, he continues to impress me more and more on the microphone week after week. I thought he did a really good job with this promo, and it was a good way to get the show started. Andre, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, he did a good job with that promo. But I was way more impressed, and rightfully so, because he's been doing it for years. But Samoa Joe's promo to kick off Raw was just... Smackdown, was just fire, where he talked about what he's going to do when he wins the Money in the Bank and how he's going to bring fear and anxiety to whoever's WWE champion, and then calling out Daniel Bryan and name dropping his wife, saying she should tell his daughter that he's going to be coming home soon, but he's not going to be the same. And then obviously what it led up to with Daniel Bryan coming out and seeing that fire from Daniel Bryan saying, "I'm going to break your legs if you mention my family again." That whole segment, all in all, was good. If you would have told me before the show that the one-on-one match between Samoa Joe and Daniel Bryan was going to turn to a triple threat match with Big Cass, probably would have been a little upset. But seeing the way it played out, it worked for me. I still want to see Samoa Joe and Daniel Bryan one-on-one, which I think we'll get at some point. But I'm not upset with him interjecting himself into the match, because the way it went down was written well, and it was really good, really entertaining. All three of them played their part right. And when they had their match, which we'll talk about later, I'm assuming when we get to that, they kind of played out a little bit of what had happened at the start of the show to start the match, as far as the way that they interacted, which we'll talk about later. But it was all in all a really good segment, and I thought all three of them knocked it out the park to open the show.
I have a question for you guys about this. So Daniel Bryan's contract will end shortly after SummerSlam. With him being back and now in singles competition again for the first time in 3 years, really, him versus Big Cass really isn't like the marquee matchup that you would think of. Is it possible that WWE are holding off on a lot of these possible, and not there's anything wrong with the Big Cass thing? He really has shown a lot since he's come back. But do you think that WWE in some ways is holding back on some of the rivalries they could have to maybe keep some carrots in front of Daniel Bryan and wanting to re-sign with WWE and say, hey, we've got the Miz thing we got to finish. We got the Samoa Joe. We've got the possibility of you going against Seth Rollins at Mania, or any different thing that you can think of. Do you think that they're kind of holding these out for him so that way he's more likely to re-sign, so that way he has things that he feels are unfinished business before he potentially hits the indies?
Possibly, but I think it's more of a situation where they don't know what his future holds. And this is just me speculating, because I'm not an expert or I'm not an inside source.
You're an expert fan.
I'm an expert fan. There you go. To me, I think it's just them being careful in case he doesn't re-sign, because do you really want to get him involved in something really huge storyline that they don't have a chance to finish out if he doesn't resign? But I could definitely see them using that as a carrot too, to try and get him to resign. I don't know where I stand on all that. But you bring up a very good point, and that could very well be the case. I just, I hope we get to see some of these matches. I hope it. I don't know. It's interesting, but yeah, you bring up a really good point, and that very well may be the case.
And Chandler, I really only see. I mean, how many more people will you think he'll fight before the contract is up? To me, it's going to be Big Cass, and then you'll have one more rivalry set up probably for SummerSlam. But other than that, I don't know. Like, can he go much further than Big Cass either throughout that time or more than Big Cass and then Samoa Joe for the summer? I guess.
I suppose that would be the route to go. I don't really know or see anyone else that he would really be feuding with that's like a high enough, like you said, Big Cass is not really Big Cass versus Daniel Bryan. That's not really a marquee matchup. Nothing against Big Cass, especially because of how much he's improved as of recent, but I don't know who else they would really like in that one-on-one setting who they would put against him besides Samoa Joe right now.
And another piece to this is, suppose you're WWE, you're trying to find out how soon. I mean, hopefully you want to re-sign him sooner rather than later, right? Because if you don't re-sign him and you know that he's going to go to New Japan or something like that, or Ring of Honor in New Japan for the next 3 years, that maybe you're forced all of a sudden with less time to get that Miz, like make money while you can, right? So maybe you force the Miz thing into whatever mid-June through mid-August until SummerSlam, because you want to make sure that you get it before you still have it's still hot, really.
Or they could just say, we're not going to do the Miz thing unless you re-sign with us. That's another way of trying to convince him to
exactly
resign.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's that carrot that's out there that's going to make him say, you know what? Well, I'll re-sign for 2 years as long as I get the Lesnar match, and I get the Miz, and I get Samoa Joe, and maybe a little title run or winning a Royal Rumble. There's. It's funny how each side really has like what kind of leverage. You know what I mean? I think Bryan. I don't know, man, because money too. That's another thing. I would say that Bryan has more leverage right now, but I mean, you throw in the money in there. I mean, it's huge. It's unbelievable.
Either way, the one thing that I do not want to see happen is a rushed feud between Miz and Daniel Bryan. That's something that needs to have the right amount of time to tell the right story, and there's so many possibilities that they can go with, especially with Miz being Money in the Bank. My dream is for Miz to win the Money in the Bank and cash in on Daniel Bryan right after Daniel Bryan wins it down the road. But all that stuff that could come in the future, the one thing I don't want to see is them rush something with Miz because they think he's leaving or because he is leaving. I would love to see him go somewhere, but I don't want to miss out on that Miz feud because that has so much potential. I think you can drag that out to WrestleMania, but like you said, it all depends on contracts.
So 2 months would not be enough time. Suppose after Money in the Bank, you start the push to SummerSlam. You have, basically I would say 9 weeks. We'll say 9 weeks between the end, Money in the Bank and SummerSlam with a pay-per-view in between. Is that enough time to? I mean, it can be done right in that amount of time, but you still would rather see the slow burn up to a Mania with Miz and Bryan.
And yes, and also, if they're going to start that feud right away, that means they're going to have to, because it's weird. What is he doing right now? Is he going to be wrestling Kaz at Money in the Bank? So I guess they're in a good spot where they could start it right after Money in the Bank if they wanted to. They'd have to, I don't know. You make a very good point. I wouldn't actually, 9 months or 9 weeks would be sufficient, but I'd still rather see something long and drawn out because those two, the history they have, talking smack, everything, it needs to be something that we can all get emotionally invested in for the long term.
Is 8 weeks enough for this, or would you rather see Samoa Joe as and that's not a second place chip he's getting, but it's still, I mean, that's a big deal, but would you rather it be Samoa Joe for that time just because you want the long Miz play, or is that plenty of time if you really, get your spots in the big points every 2 or 3 weeks, I guess?
I think that would be enough time, but I don't know. I also have a weird kind of take on the whole thing with Daniel Bryan and The Miz because I personally think that they should have had things going with them as soon as he came over from the Superstar shakeup, because at that point, I mean, he was still kind of mocking Daniel Bryan in the ring. Daniel Bryan was just cleared and returned, and he used his sway to get Miz over to SmackDown. and they kind of went away from that. So I felt like at that point in time, it was like that they should have struck while the iron was hot. And now coming back to it, there's not going to be a problem, but it's not going to have that same feeling as it did right then and there, because right then at that time it was like, oh man, this is finally a possibility. Maybe it's going to happen. But instead of going that route, they went different routes with both The Miz and Bryan. But as far as that amount of time, I think that would be plenty of time, especially if you have that one pay-per-view in between Money in the Bank and SummerSlam. I think that's, or whatever. What was was that the two that you were saying?
Money in the Bank. Yeah, Money in the Bank. I'm not sure what June is anymore.
Yeah,
because they got rid of. I think Battleground maybe doesn't exist anymore, or Balls of Fire doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Or is that what it's called?
That definitely,
Balls of Fire?
Great Balls of Fire. That definitely doesn't.
Even when I said it, I'm like, oh, it can't be right. It's horrible.
But it was right.
Okay, but so it might actually be Battleground.
Yeah.
We can take a look at it later. But
either way, with that much time, with like between the two major pay-per-views and one in between, I think that's plenty of time for them to tell the story and kind of flesh out the rivalry between these two.
I know we're gonna do a different top 3 later, but. Suppose Bryan, leaves, or let's say he stays. What are like the main 3 things you want to see him do in that next contract? Whether it's like a certain rivalry, a Brock Lesnar, winning the Rumble, a title run for a certain amount of time, or is it the Miz thing? Is there certain things that you think should be super high on his list? Either you're in his boots, or just as a fan.
New boot goofing as myself, as Daniel Bryan.
Yes,
with the boots with the fur. Does he still have those? Come on. I think at the top of the list for me personally, I would like to see him have an actual legit championship run, whether it's the Universal or WWE title. Just because unfortunately, the last time he won the world title, he had to relinquish it. What was it? A week or two later.
He's not had good luck with championships
once
in general.
Wins them, yeah,
and that goes back to even the loss to Sheamus.
Yeah, the 18-second record-setting world title loss at Mania. But I guess that was when he won the world title, and that's when he cashed in Money in the Bank. But I guess that was the longest probably world title run that he's had. But I would like to see an actual, like, kind of along the lines of what AJ Styles is doing right now with the WWE Championship. I would like to see Daniel Bryan have that kind of run with, like I said, either the Universal or World title. It wouldn't bother me. I know probably most people would rather not see him hold the Universal title just because it's the Universal title, but I mean, it's still looked at as a World Championship, and either or, in my opinion, if he were to have that kind of title run, that would be definitely the number one thing I would like to see. Another thing I would like to see, possibly leading to that, would be to see him win the Rumble, because it's something that he hasn't done in his career. And there was that one year that he should have been number 30. Rey Mysterio came out, who is an all-time babyface, and got booed out of the building because he wasn't Daniel Bryan. So that should have been his year. But yeah, those would definitely be a couple big things that I would like to see, were he to resign and stay with the company.
Before we go to Andre, I wanted to just point out that the pay-per-view we're talking about in between June and August is Extreme Rules, okay. July 15th in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So Extreme Rules, I think, has been moved around a little bit, because that was certainly not one of the June pay-per-views.
No.
Last year, I think July was, or June or July, because last year July was, I think, Battleground the last 2 years, and was Great Balls of Fire right before or right after 4th of July in 2017. So this year, Extreme Rules gets moved. I think that typically was one that was not long after Mania that they moved, since they decided to do dual brands, and kicking off with Backlash a few weeks ago. So there you go. Extreme Rules is the pay-per-view July 15th in Pittsburgh.
3 things that I want to see Daniel Bryan do, assuming he signs like a 1 to 2 year contract. Chandler hit 2 of them. That is winning the Rumble and winning the title. But the way I would love to see that go down, and I kind of alluded to it a couple minutes ago, but I would like to see him around the SummerSlam time period, maybe even Survivor Series. I'd like to see him slowly climb his way up the ladder, become the number 1 contender, and SummerSlam it would probably be more fitting because it's happened at the SummerSlam before, but I'd love to see him win the WWE World title, or excuse me, the WWE title as they call it now, and hold it for maybe a few seconds, 30 seconds before The Miz, obviously after winning Money in the Bank, cashes in on him. That would be the second thing I want to see happen. Unless I'll count that as one, him winning the title and losing it right away. Because it's fitting, as Chandler said, that's happened. He hasn't got the long run. I still want to see the long run, but I don't want to see that till later. Because I want to see him just get it and then lose it, try to get it back and not able to, and then have him win the Rumble. And as a huge Daniel Bryan fan, I want to see him win the Rumble from the number 1 spot. Because he almost did it at the Greatest Rumble. I'd love to see him do it at the Real Rumble, or whatever we want to call it, the Royal Rumble. And then I want to see him win the title at WrestleMania from The Miz in the main event, which will never happen because it's not Roman Reigns. And then hold it after that. Then he can have his long title run that he deserves. But I think that those are the 3 things that I want to see. I want to see happen with Daniel Bryan. And of course, we got the matches that we can have along the way or after. Brock Lesnar, Samoa Joe, Seth Rollins, AJ Styles, etc., etc. So much you can do with him. As I'm thinking about it, as I'm talking about it, as much as I'd love to see him go to New Japan or Ring of Honor and do stuff with Bullet Club and Cody and all and Young Bucks and all that, I do kind of want to see him stick around too, because there's so much unfinished business in WWE with Daniel Bryan. So I think that's what I'd like to see happen with him.
All right. Switching gears here, I want to bring up the match, the 6-man tag match between New Day and The Miz and The Bar, because that match was just fantastic. And there was just a lot of fun, good things that happened. Before the match, The Miz was kind of blindfolded, and before this happened, the New Day summoned Mr. Bootyworth as they're just backstage, just yelling his name, Bootyworth. Finally, he comes with the platter of pancakes, and Biggie kind of dabs a couple of the pancakes on his tongue to make sure they're good quality. Then they take the plate from him and send Mr. Bootyworth on his way.
I just want to point out he licked it to see how it goes. He put it back on the
put it back, yeah.
But then right away, Kofi picks it up kind of with this ew and just kind of throws it off to the side. They're so good.
They're hilarious. And then they go over to The Bar and The Miz, and The Bar are throwing pancakes at The Miz blindfolded, and he's kind of like a Jedi, like kung fu master, just swatting them away.
And he legit swatted quite a few out of them out of the sky blindfolded. Props to him.
And then the very last one he caught and just takes a bite out of, and then they all like get hype or whatever. But then the match itself, that's just fun, entertaining stuff that happened right before they cut to commercial, and then came back to the match. And the match itself was fantastic.
Chandler, do you remember that? Sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to. Do you remember? And I haven't got a chance to ask you this today. The spot in the corner where Xavier Woods is laying in the corner. One of the members of the Bar runs at him. He moves. The Bar is like prone in the corner, and he runs and jumps off their back and does a flip to the outside. I've never seen him do that specific move before, and I just want to know if you'd seen that or not.
Yeah, I saw the whole match, and that spot was that was a fantastic spot. There was just the whole match itself was great. Biggie ends up getting the win with kind of like a tilt-a-whirl, like twisting big ending that he hits. And I don't know, man, all 3 of these guys, I really like what they've done with the New Day these past few weeks, and they're really playing with, and they still haven't announced which one of them officially is going to be in the Money in the Bank ladder match, and they each keep having moments in these matches where, you know, a couple weeks ago, Kofi jumped off of Cesaro's shoulder and took out Sheamus. And then in this match, you had the moment where Andre was just talking about Woods doing kind of like a barrel roll flip off of somebody else's back. And then Big E with the definitive just big ending finish. All 3 of them legitimately could be in the Money in the Bank ladder match and win it. And I really like how they're playing that up. And it's kind of interesting to think back on it now and like see that they're even doing that in the matches themselves.
And I liked after the match when they're celebrating in the ring and they're all pointing at each other like, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be?
Yep.
They're not saying a word. They're just pointing at each other. Music's still playing, but the whole crowd is going. You can hear over the music going, who. Man, they're so good. They're one of the best things going in the wrestling world today. Great match, all 6 of those men, but New Day especially.
Do you guys see Cesaro and Sheamus being sort of... And even when the Miz Taraj existed, there was times where Cesaro and Sheamus would, because they're seemingly much more important, were kind of playing that role and in the 6-man tag matches with the Miz. Are we seeing like a continuation of that on SmackDown now?
I actually tweeted about this because that moment that they had before the match was hilarious, and then I don't know, just their entrance itself, they looked like a unit. They came out to they kind of played off of each other for their entrance, and I tweeted about it, and I would not be upset if they were kind of to stick them together as a 3-man faction. It'd be interesting to see how just the dynamic of who's in charge would play out between those three, but yeah, just from the chemistry that they had in this match and even leading up to it, I would not be opposed to that at all.
Yeah, I would like that, and I think Miz works best in that heel role as sort of the leader, but also just having backup. And they're Cesaro and Sheamus have been a very good tag team this last year and a half. So
yeah, that'd be cool. I wouldn't mind seeing it. Their chemistry is really good. The segments they've had together so far in SmackDown Live have been really fun. And it gives all three of them something to do. And I'm of the feeling the more three-men group, the better. 3-man groups, the better, because my ultimate dream is to see a trios championship at some point, or a 6-man tag championship, whatever they want to call it. And I think the best way to get there is to have multiple 3-man groups that get a lot of attention, a lot of buzz, and that's another group of 3 that could possibly be in that role. But even if not, they're still incredibly entertaining and fun together, so I wouldn't mind seeing that at all.
Speaking of 3-man groups, I've seen a few rumors, or not rumors, but I've seen a few posts, if you will, articles that say that Roman Reigns wants someday to have a Samoan Shield where it's him and the Usos.
That'd be great.
How would you guys feel about that?
They did it a little bit about a year ago, or was it 2 years ago now, I guess. Was it 2?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
It must have been, yeah. It has,
yeah,
yep.
Because it would have been right. It was leading up to the original brand split. Yeah, so it was about 2 years ago. And that was kind of fun. And the Usos needed, certainly not quite the gimmick change that we see them in now, but they were in need of a change at that time out of the face paint. And then them aligning with Roman Reigns was good. And then they've probably never been booed quite like when they were with Roman Reigns. But I would like to see that too. I would have no problem with that. I think that would help Roman a lot as well. And those two are so good at promos. It would, once similar to the Shield thing, it would hide Roman keep him to be maybe at his best. And then with tag matches, also same thing. He wouldn't start. He would come in near the end, get his stuff in, and he wouldn't look. I think it would benefit him that he would look much better coming out of that in those matches in that role than how he is, at least in the fans' eye, with the way he is now.
I think it would be a lot of fun, especially if they were a heel group, because there's always strength in numbers, and you can play up to the crowd's feelings towards Roman Reigns. I think that would be great. I would love to see that. I think it would be, as Chandler, or as you said, Frony, that would be great for Roman Reigns. I don't necessarily think the Usos need it. I think the Usos are in a great spot already, but that won't hurt the Usos one bit to be put with a main event player like Roman Reigns. As much as I'm not a big fan of him as a babyface, I do think him in a group would be great, especially with those two, and bonus if they're a heel group.
Yeah, I especially feel like now that the Usos have, kind of changed their whole personas up from the face paint, traditional kind of Samoan style to the more, real street style that they have. I think that it makes more sense to put the 3 of them together. So it would be real cool to see that. And I would not be at all opposed to seeing a 6-man or a trios championship in the WWE. I think that's something that they could definitely tap into. I love it out of Ring of Honor and other Mexican promotions that do it traditionally, that would do it. So I think that that's something that would be awesome to see in WWE, and there's a lot of room for it. There's a lot of guys that are it's a pretty big gap right now when you think about it between the bottom of the card and the top, and there's a lot of guys that are kind of just stuck at the very bottom. Your Breezangos, your Ascensions, your the Revival, other teams.
Anybody who's on Monday nights, really.
Outside of Seth Rollins.
So basically everyone that was involved in the barbecue
yes.
food fight.
Yes. anyone, name any one of those guys, and that's exactly what I'm saying. There's those guys, then there is the mid-card, I guess, that you could say, for both Raw and SmackDown. It would be guys like Seth Rollins and Jeff Hardy. They're both the champions, and then you have your Jinder Mahals and your I don't know who else. Baron Corbin's, I guess. I don't know. But the guys that are kind of on the bottom and not used at all, you could give them a 6-man championship to go after, and there's a segment every week on either shows or both shows.
I'd love to see one of the shows take on a 3-man tag championships as soon as even July, I guess, at Extreme Rules. I think that even as soon as that would be fine. SmackDown right now has the better 3-piece setups or players to do it, and then maybe that would actually make the Monday Night Tag Team Championships mean quite a bit more, because that would be you are the tag team champions, as opposed to what we have now where all of the focus and everything. I know we have kind of a combined star tag team champions on Raw, but SmackDown has a legit division, and it's so much fun to watch. And I think hopefully the bar gets brought up a little bit too, to be a little bit more important in this, a more important cog in the machine that is the tag team division. But going to 3-man tags works on SmackDown a lot when you have the New Day, the Miz and the Bar, or you go AJ with the Club.
Sanity.
You go Sanity. Have we seen them on TV yet?
Not yet.
Okay, because we've been hearing forever that they were. But yeah, that's another one. But it just is weird that we haven't seen them yet, and we're weeks.
They
after
got in
the
trouble
draft,
for
or
saying chaos
whatever.
is coming. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah, right. But I think SmackDown really could be a home for the 3-man tag championships. I think the Bludgeon Brothers would need a third person, or maybe you even do it more fun. Like, no, they're just the monsters. They don't need the third person. I think that'd be kind of fun too.
Calling the ringer.
Get Nicholas in there.
Or just make them completely unstoppable and bring Braun Strowman over and put him with the Bludgeon Brothers and say goodnight to everybody else.
Well, I mean, we don't want to cause Armageddon over here. We're just trying to make a 3-man tag
Speak
division.
for
The
yourself,
family
man.
formerly known as Wyatt.
that would be their team name.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So then leading into that, all of that was leading into the main event for SmackDown, where Samoa Joe got Daniel Bryan in the Coquina Clutch in a triple threat match against Daniel Bryan and Big Cass, and this match was fantastic. All 3 men looked great in it, and I kind of had mixed feelings about who I wanted to win this match. I didn't necessarily want Daniel Bryan to win it. He's already won Money in the Bank and cashed in successfully. I was kind of on the fence between Joe and Cass, but after seeing Joe win it, I was okay with that decision, and I kind of want him to win it all. I would like to see Samoa Joe win the Money in the Bank contract. He's someone that, as he said in his promo to start the show off with, that WWE champion, he's going to be looking over his shoulder night in and night out if someone like Samoa Joe is holding that briefcase.
Yeah, you can't lose putting Samoa. As much as I want to see Miz win it for everything that I said earlier, Samoa Joe would be would be a great choice too, because for all the reasons you said, he's always going to be lurking there, and he's a legit threat. Someone, no offense to Baron Corbin, but someone who we want to see more than Baron Corbin. We want to see win a championship. So we will be more. We'll be more. What's the word I'm looking for? We'll be able to get sucked into the moment more when he comes out, whether he's teasing it or whether he's not. But I think Samoa Joe will be a great choice to win that. And I love everybody in the match. So this year I'm going to be excited no matter who wins, unlike last year.
And I agree with you on that one as well.
I think WWE's made a lot of mistakes these last 4 years or something or like that, because Sandow misses the cash-in. Baron Corbin was a dumpster fire, missed the cash-in. Ambrose had his cash-in later that night. So really, and are those the last 3? Because there might have been a 4th one in there. Carmella, yeah, I don't know. But
yeah, no, that's the last 3.
Because
Sheamus was
Sheamus, and
2015.
even then, I didn't like that. So,
and he was such a paper transitional champion too.
Yeah.
Like,
he was used to put Roman Reigns over.
Yep.
A phrase I've said multiple times on this show. Used to put Roman Reigns over.
But that's 4 in a row that I really have not been pumped about or excited with, and they've tried to go with, okay, guys who are the briefcase is gonna help bump them up a level potentially, like Sandow and like Corbin, or you have guys who are already established. I mean, obviously Sheamus for a much longer period than Ambrose, but for him to do it that night, I mean, there's so much like fun and gusto has been kind of sucked out of the Money in the Bank briefcase. It does not mean as much. I mean, it still is important to watch for the possibility, but the last 4 years have really not gone the way of WWE, and it's been not nearly as entertaining as it could have been. And for someone like a Samoa Joe to win it, I think that would be a really good thing, because he's somebody who, I mean, he is a heel, but he is supported by a lot of fans, and it would be more daunting to, in kayfabe, with any champion having Samoa Joe out there at any time. You always have to leave a little bit in the tank for the possibility that Samoa Joe is going to come out after your match, or I mean, there's just a lot of different possibilities. So Samoa Joe, I would love that. Who else is locked in right now for this Money in the Bank? So one of the New Day members, Samoa Joe.
Braun Strowman. The
is
monster in the bank, as he called himself on Raw.
Very beautiful. Okay, so and there's going to be 6 or 7.
8, I think.
There's 8 this year.
Four and
4 and 4 from each show.
Bobby Roode is one.
Bobby Roode, so that's 4. You got Raw with Braun, Roode. SmackDown has Joe, as well as we just mentioned 4 people.
Joe, one of the New Day.
Joe and one of the New Day. Yep, there you go. Ziggler involved in this?
Nope.
Did they have a match scheduled for Money in the Bank yet?
Ziggler and Drew McIntyre?
Yeah.
No, they've been kind of feuding with, well, not feuding with, but the past couple of weeks, Chad Gable's had matches with singles matches with each one of them, and kind of just gets attacked afterward.
Right. Yeah, and the one with Ziggler last week was really good. I didn't see the one with
this
McIntyre
week. It was
yet.
fantastic.
Another one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's yeah.
It was kind of a squash match, though. Gable did not. I did not feel that he had a chance at any point in that match.
All right, so for the Money in the Bank, the men's participants, we have Braun Strowman, Finn Balor, The Miz, Rusev, Bobby Roode, Kevin Owens, Samoa Joe, and finally then the last spot is one of the New Day.
Is that 9?
It's 8.
That's 8.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't count so good. Okay.
Yep.
All right. There's
a
lot of good possibilities.
That's a great field, I think.
Yeah.
There's no one in that list of people that I don't want to see win that match. Whoever wins, I'm happy.
The list is so good that Bobby Roode is the only person I don't want to see win it.
And
I know
that
sounds weird.
way,
but
and I don't even mean that as as throwing shade towards Bobby Roode, but
I feel the exact same way.
I don't necessarily want to see Braun win it either, only because I just feel like he's on the next level of being, the champion next time he gets a singles match where there isn't any shady business going on. So I don't necessarily want to see Braun win it, not anything against him. I don't want to see Bobby Roode win it either, but gosh, anyone else there, man, that's a fun story.
Mm-hmm.
lot of good possibilities. So yeah, you don't have similar to some of the crews we've had the last 4 years that ended up the wrong way basically every time, in my opinion.
Well, it looks like, let me see, what's the date on that? It looks like Money in the Bank is on Rusev Day, so Rusev winning wouldn't be a bad thing either.
Would you look at that? Just look at it.
That is fantastic. Gotta love Rusev Day.
Yep.
All right, so switching gears,
and
just
Father's Day this year. Wow.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
Wow.
Switching gears over to Raw, then we had to start the show off, Finn Balor and Braun Strowman had a match where Finn won via disqualification. I'm really enjoying watching these two square off against each other. Just
so fun.
The size difference is great, and they're working really well with each other. So
their promo on Raw, and then the slap.
Oh, the slap! Yep.
And then what was it? Braun Strowman saying, "Not too bad for such a little guy," or something like that. I like this feud.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they actually go anywhere with this. It kind of feels like it's just filler time until Money in the Bank one, because they're both participants in the match. So it kind of feels like that's really all that this is this is between these two. But I'm enjoying the ride if it's nothing else, at least.
Yeah, this is a really good pairing. I would be fine seeing this one for a number of pay-per-views, and it's a really good face versus face matchup where I don't think it's either one guy is getting hurt by having the other one in the match.
And this is the perfect catalyst to bring back for the first time. How many years has it been since we've seen the Demon?
It's been a while.
If Finn cannot beat Braun Strowman after multiple attempts, you've got to think that kayfabe at some point he's going to have to bring out the Demon and try and pick up that victory. So I wouldn't mind seeing this play out a little bit, as Frony said. Let them go and let this lead to maybe SummerSlam the Demon. I don't know.
Maybe he needs the help of Hardy and Wyatt to summon the Demon.
Get thrown into the lake of reincarnation.
Oh, now you're speaking my language, Frony.
Yeah, I
Come
know.
out as
I
the
know.
Demon.
Yeah.
Yes,
That makes all the
please.
sense in the world.
That would be
He
great.
just
That
has
would
to-
be pretty
Yeah.
He just has to visit the Hardy compound. That's all.
Man,
We're one visit away.
Write it up. Send it.
Send it, brother.
I'm in. I'm all for it.
Yeah, that's. I wanted to bring up the Demon and the fact that we haven't seen him in so long, and get you guys' thoughts on it. So I'm glad that you guys kind of went there with it. I feel like, I don't know. It's weird because I understand that if you're only gonna want to bring the Demon out for very, very important matchups, but I feel like since he's made his return and since he's been fully back to in-ring competition from his injury where he had to drop the Universal title, I feel like there's been moments where you could have brought the Demon out and it would have given that match that much more oomph.
I agree. I just hope they're waiting for the right moment because it's been too long. I love the fact that we don't see the Demon that much because it makes sense, kayfabe-wise, that what it takes to summon that part of him. I think it has to be just for special occasions, just for big blow-offs, just for big pay-per-views. But at the same time, it's been longer than it should have been. I understand that WrestleMania, they had the LGBT thing, which was really important. I'm not knocking that at all, and that needed to be done. But we got to see the Demon soon at some point, this calendar year for sure. And, yeah, I agree with you 100%, though.
I don't know. I was kind of okay with not having it at WrestleMania just because it was a triple threat match. I feel like the Demon is something that, like you said, it takes that much to summon it from within him for him to bring the Demon out. So it's I feel like it's better, especially as long as it has been. If we're gonna get the final payout of seeing the Demon one more time, then it should be in a one-on-one setting, not necessarily a triple threat match. Although
right.
It was WrestleMania and it was for the Intercontinental Championship, so that is a big deal. But I would much rather see the Demon return in a one-on-one match at this point,
especially against a guy like Strowman, who's no one's been able to beat. If he can lose 3, 4, 5 times to Braun as regular old Finn Balor and finally pick up a clean victory over him as the Demon, that would do so much for him and his career. Not that he needs it because he's had a phenomenal career. He's had a great career. AJ's had a phenomenal career, but it would be good for him right now with his current status in WWE, and I don't think that hurts Braun Strowman whatsoever.
It would be a very fun story. I hope and look forward to that happening.
All right. We had Jinder Mahal go against Seth Rollins for the Intercontinental Championship on Raw Monday night, and Mahal won via disqualification, which meant Seth retained the title because the title doesn't change hands on a disqualification. Andre, what did you think of this match and how things kind of went down?
The match itself was really good. Jinder Mahal, I've always been a fan of his. I just hope more people are going to start coming around to him because he has improved drastically in the ring. His last several matches has shown that. I think it was a weird way to end it with the way that Seth kind of took it the heel route, attacking both him and Singh with a chair. I understand that Singh and Jinder were cheating right before that, and Jinder hit Seth with the chair first when the ref wasn't looking. But at the same time, it's kind
He
of
also attacked him last week after.
Yeah, that's
after
true.
their match, he came out and attacked him.
It's just weird because the way that they booked Jinder before this match, he seemed like the babyface against Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns was doing all the heel stuff. And then, yes, Jinder does some heel stuff in this match, and he attacked Seth last week. But Seth using the chair and getting the cheap, not victory, he got the L, but the cheap way to retain the title. It's kind of weird to me. And then seeing the way Nia Jax acted later on in the show was just kind of two weird things that happen for two alleged baby faces. But I guess Seth Rollins has been a little underhanded before, so it's okay. But I just thought that was really weird.
Does this throw a little water on the whole burn it down run that Seth Rollins is on right now, where he's just been crazy hot and stupid over with every arena that he goes to? Does this kind of throw some water on it?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No way. Seth Rollins is Monday Night Rollins. That's not going to hurt him whatsoever. The ending of that match is only going to help him because it was a really cool spot where he took the guitar shot from Elias and fell forward into the table that was down lower off of the announce table. So no, it does not throw any water on it.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Also, yeah, he was kind of gloating up on the announce table at the top of the ramp, and then Elias came out because he interrupted Elias for his match, and Elias smashed the guitar on his back, and he was getting stretchered out, and he had a neck brace on, and he kind of waved off all of the help and walked off on his own power. So I guess, yeah, in the end it doesn't really hurt him.
One thing that happened during that little segment when the EMTs and the paramedics were taking him out, one of the paramedics said to him, and I hope Vince McMahon tore him a new one when he got backstage, said, "We're going to have to get you to a hospital."
Oh, yeah, he was fined heavily, I'm sure. Doesn't he know their medical facilities?
Yeah, we'll be seeing different medical professionals sometime soon.
But I did like that Seth eventually got off of the stretcher and refused the help and walked to the back. And I liked having Jamie Noble help him to the back. That was kind of like a little homage to J&J Security. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe just because he's an agent. But to me, it was.
I like that, too.
Still real to me, damn it. But no, I totally, that's exactly what I thought to myself in my head when I was watching it, too. Oh, J&J. Then later on in the night, we had we kind of touched on it earlier with this whole barbecue, this Memorial Day barbecue that they had. I get that it was a holiday episode, so they're gonna have a segment like that. They do that for 4th of July, Christmas, whenever a WWE show, Raw or SmackDown, lands on a holiday. There's at least one segment that is holiday related. So I get that. But this is exactly why the point that I was trying to make earlier was that there's that huge gap with the guys that are on the lower card, which is pretty much all of Raw's tag team division. Well, you just lump these guys in groups of 3, and I totally get what you were saying, Frony, about how it would make more sense to have trios champions or 6-man champions on SmackDown right now, just because there's so many legit teams and legit pairings that you could put together. But man, if you put these guys together that were in a part of this barbecue on Raw, just make new teams of all of them, I think it would be something better, in my opinion, than this.
So you want to see a tag team shakeup?
Not necessarily a shakeup, but I want to see these guys, pretty much everyone. I mean, you had the Revival in this thing. What are they doing with them? And if the club were still on Raw, I have a feeling they would have been there. It's just, shout out to the club, by the way. Number 1 contenders to SmackDown tag team titles. Super excited about that match, and fingers crossed for them. I want them to win. I know they won't. They're gonna run into the buzzsaw that is the Bludgeon Brothers, but I'm really pulling for the Good Brothers in that. But anyways,
can I just say that it hurt my heart a little bit to see the Revival.
It completely hurt my heart.
Everybody else, okay, I can deal with it. And Rhino was the MVP of that segment.
Oh, yes,
for
he
just
was.
sitting down and eating his food while everyone else was fighting. That was great. But other than that, it was a silly segment, and it really, wow, the Revival, I don't know if it's because they had the 2 consecutive injuries, but they are not in that good of a spot booking-wise in WWE right now. I'm just grateful that Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt are the tag team champions, so they weren't involved in this skit. Otherwise, it probably would have hurt even worse. But weird. I know it's Memorial Day, but I don't know.
Talking to Zach about this yesterday, and he was just like, of course, it's a holiday. They feel like they have to get a food fight, or somebody gets a cake to the face or whatever. Like, there's always a couple times a year on different holidays. This is just how it goes, and we unfortunately have come to expect things like this. Remember when we used to get a damn gravy bowl match? God, that was the best.
Those were the days.
Yeah, oh gosh. WWE is really floating around in the toilet these days.
I don't mind food fights if they're backstage, but in the ring like that, to me, was just...
It was in the ring. I
Yes,
didn't know.
it was in the ring.
Yep.
You didn't.
Yep.
That's even worse. Yeah,
Yep.
that is worse.
And that's it's so much worse. Like it's not as bad. It's still kind of, you roll your eyes and you just suffer through it even when it is backstage. But
Right.
to put that out in the ring, it was
Yeah, that's garbage. Yikes.
All right.
Speaking of garbage, Bobby Lashley's sisters?
Yeah,
Just kidding.
I didn't even want to bring it up.
Well, there was an apology.
There
Can you guys
was-
tell me how this
yeah.
went? Like, did it seem sincere? Or
Oh no! It was completely in character heel Sami Zayn.
Great.
He came out and
Good.
started out talking serious about how it got a lot of attention on social media, and it was cringeworthy and it was offensive and all this
He
and
used
that.
all these words, yeah.
and apologized and then turn it around to being the sorry, not sorry. Everything I said was true about Bobby Lashley. Blah blah blah. Yeah, his sisters. I
Sammy
hate to break it to you, but his sisters were not really his sisters. They were men. Blah blah blah. But
they were men.
this, I didn't mind Sami Zayn's portion of this segment itself. This whole storyline with Sami Zayn and Bobby Lashley, I don't care for whatsoever. But his apology was what it needed to be. It was him in character using the real life heat of it and mixing it in. But then, of course, you had Bobby Lashley come down and cut a promo, and that kind of ruined everything. Bobby Lashley needs a mouthpiece ASAP. Yeah, but that was the basis of the apology. It was a non-apology apology in kayfabe, in character.
Shane, did you think that this hurt the previous week's segment? I can't even say it out loud. But I mean, did they have to apologize? It's not like they crucified anybody. Just kidding. They've done that before too.
That was
Stone Cold, yeah.
So did ECW too.
You know, honestly, this furthered the rivalry between these two, because now they're going to have a match at Money in the Bank. It furthered the rivalry between these two, and it didn't completely wash away the taste in my mouth from that segment.
Oh, of course not.
But it did kind of help me forget about it a little bit.
Yeah.
So honestly, all in all, I'd say it helped. It helped that the fact that 2 weeks ago we got what we got.
Okay, so is this the best thing for Money in the Bank during this match? Looks like Sammy's gonna, has some heel antics to win the match, but then Lashley hopefully has a manager or somebody that comes out of nowhere to give him Lashley the win.
One of his sisters.
One of his sisters. Oh man!
I think that would be a lot more interesting than what I feel and what I think is going to happen, which is just Lashley's going to get the clean victory and
2
then
minutes.
go nowhere and
Yeah.
then go nowhere from there. So
Right.
we'll see how that goes. In our closing minutes here, let's give out our top 3 all-time Money in the Bank cash-ins. So,
Okay.
Frony, Andre, which one of you two, if whoever would like to start?
I'll let you go ahead and go first.
All right, so I have an honorable mention as well as three cash-ins, and I'll go in order from the honorable mention, 3, 2, and 1. So my honorable mention goes to Edge at New Year's Revolution 2006. It was the very first cash-in, and it set the precedent for every cash-in after that. It happened after a Elimination Chamber match that Cena had won, if I'm not mistaken. And I didn't have much time to go back and review these, so I'm going off a memory of all these cash-ins. But if I remember correctly, Cena was bloodied and beaten in the ring with his title, and Vince McMahon comes out as the cage is being raised up, or maybe the cage wasn't raised up yet, and he tells him to raise the cage. I can't remember, but he says, "This night isn't over, there's another match," and Edge comes out, cashes in, wins the title from Cena, is my honorable mention. Number 3, which might be some of your guys' number 1, number 3 is Dolph Ziggler on Raw in 2013. Probably the loudest pop for a cash-in ever. He cashed in on Alberto Del Rio. Am I correct? Yes. That was when he still had AJ Lee and Big E Langston was still at his side, right? Yeah. So that was my number 3. That was really fun. That he was the heel that at that point in time, as he is now, but he was a heel at that point in time and still got the huge pop. So that's my number 3. My number 2, which is also might be one of your guys' number 1s, is Seth Rollins cashing in at WrestleMania 31 against Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns to make it a triple threat match, saving the card, saving the main event from the match that people wanted to see it, but the outcome that no one wanted to see, which was Roman Reigns winning, and Seth Rollins came in and changed all that. And that was my number 2. My number 1, Do you guys have any idea which one it is?
I have an idea.
I think I might have.
I'm going to say Randy Orton beating Daniel Bryan.
No, wait.
CM Punk.
No. RVD at ECW One Night Stand in 2006. That was a cash-in. That was one of the few where it was cashed in before, where someone said, I'm going to cash in at this date. And so he said that, I'm going to cash it in One Night Stand against John Cena.
I hate that.
Oh, that was one of the greatest matches in history.
I didn't say I didn't hate that. I love the match is great. Foreshadowing a cash-in and planning a cash-in, thumbs down.
Every single time? So you want to have the same thing every time. You don't want to mix it up at all.
What is the point of winning the Money in the Bank? To me, I don't like it.
In that situation, it worked out. It was his pay-per-view coming up, ECW. He held all the cards kayfabe because I had Edge waiting in the wings. He had Paul Heyman. So it worked out storyline-wise. Plus, that was an incredible match, incredible moment, incredible atmosphere.
Pay-per-view, the whole event.
The crowd, the chants, everything. So that is my favorite cash-in, even though it wasn't a typical cash-in, simply because of everything that happened. And it's just unfortunate what happened after with RVD getting in trouble with the marijuana and losing the title.
Okay, for my number 3, I am going to go with Randy Orton beating Daniel Bryan shortly after Daniel Bryan won his first, the big championship at the time, beating John Cena at SummerSlam. Orton comes out, Triple H turns on Daniel Bryan, we get the Authority, and while I know it was terrible for Daniel Bryan, that also was another really good, I guess, important point in the timeline that became the Daniel Bryan Yes movement, and then winning it at WrestleMania. So to me, that is a very important thing. Plus, I believe Orton ended up being in that triple threat match, right? It was Orton, Batista, and Bryan, and right in the second match for Daniel Bryan. So he did eventually beat Randy Orton for that title. And I know it is like a horrible, awful moment when Bryan, had the confetti coming down and everything, and then Orton comes out and ruins the whole damn thing. But to me, awful moment, but it also was very important, and to me that's still like one of the most memorable cash-ins, and I think it all worked out in the end. The next two are tough, man. I've got Ziggler and I've got Seth Rollins. It's really hard for me to put.
That's my 1 and 2 as well.
It's so hard to put one on the other. Ahead. It's almost like 1A, 1B. It really is. Seth Rollins saved WrestleMania in a lot of ways, and I don't know, but that Ziggler, man, I know he only had it for a few months. That was such a great moment, and I loved that rivalry between him and Alberto Del Rio, and I really despise Alberto Del Rio. I don't like Alberto Del Rio. I don't think he's that good of a wrestler. I think he's one of the most overrated guys that we have in professional wrestling right now. So I'm not a big fan of him, but the rivalry he had with Ziggler, when Ziggler started getting concussions and they played that in one of the matches, it was really great stuff. I also, before we get to yours, Chandler, I have the 3 worst cash-ins. I'm not going to put them in any order here, but the Carmella one that just happened, that I was actually in New Orleans for, just awful. And a lot of that has to do with Mike Chioda, but it was just like, what the hell's going on? What's going on right now? It was a botch,
to say the least.
Yes, it was a botch in.
Wait a minute. So even though your girlfriend was involved in the cash-in, you did not enjoy it?
No, I didn't.
Wow, that might be breakup situation.
Well, right we're talking about getting engaged, so we're really pushing things to the next level.
Oh my god!
But the next one that I'll also put on my list would be the Sandow cash-in. Just it didn't work out the way you wanted it to. You thought that, okay, somebody wins the cash-in, that hopefully that's a stepping stone for someone, especially like Sandow. I thought that was great, but him botching it was sucked. And in that regard,
briefcase too.
And and then which also in return actually makes the Baron Corbin one kind of fun because he didn't get it. It's opposite sides there. And then number 1 worst cash in or least favorite cash in, I guess like I said, I don't want to number them, but I also go with the Randy Orton one on that list as well.
So
it's
the Randy
your,
Orton's 1-1 on both your lists.
It's
Yeah.
not. No, it's number 3 on the best
Oh, okay,
cash-ins.
okay.
And
Never
then
mind, you're right,
on my
you're right.
least favorite, it's also on the list.
okay, just
So
because he
it-
did it to Daniel Bryan.
Oh
Yep,
man, it
yep.
hurt. That moment.
It stings.
Oh, it
Dude,
hurt.
that moment-
So
oh my
bad.
God,
he sucked the life out of the room.
Oh.
I mean, it was awful.
Yep.
And like I said, it was so important, but the way I felt there and like
hurt.
the idea of
It
where
definitely
WWE
hurt.
was going with Daniel Bryan, man, it was devastating.
So my top 3, I'd like to say my honorable mention is when Daniel Bryan cashed in against the Big Show and won the world title for the first time. Just because I love Daniel Bryan. That's the only reason honestly,
Great
as far
reason.
as cash-ins go, it wasn't the best, and it was after a terrible, weird chairs match with Big Show and Mark Henry. But Daniel Bryan became the world champ, and that was awesome. Number 3 for me is going to be when The Miz cashed in on Randy Orton on Monday Night Raw, just because I feel like that was a big moment. It was definitely a defining moment in The Miz's career, and it wasn't necessarily the kickstart to The Miz that we have nowadays, but at the same time, it kind of was. It was kind of a glimpse into what The Miz could be. And then, as Frony said, my 1 and 2 are definitely Dolph and Seth.
How do you decide
But
which one, man? You go Seth?
I go Seth number
Okay,
1, yes.
all right, that's
just
fair.
for all the reasons that you guys said. He saved that WrestleMania. It was just such a huge moment. No one's ever cashed in on WrestleMania since, and he was the first one to do it. And just to have that moment of him holding up the title with the fireworks going off behind him at Levi Stadium was awesome. But yeah, it is pretty hard. It is pretty hard to decide between those two.
Andre, you didn't. There's one that we both had. We both had those. You didn't have. I'm trying to think of which ones we had that
The
you
Daniel
didn't have.
Bryan getting screwed one?
Yeah.
Or
But you had you had Ziggler
I
and
had
Rollins.
Ziggler and Rollins
Okay.
3 and 2.
Okay.
And Daniel Bryan getting screwed I didn't have, but looking back in retrospect, I think
was
that's
important,
a great one.
yeah.
It was important. At the time, I didn't like it.
Because it. Oh man,
Yep.
it hurt so bad. It hurt so bad. It was
It's still
ridiculous.
hurting.
It still hurts.
He's recovered from it and
Yeah.
everything, and later that year he came back, but it's still hurting. But,
CM Punk not on anybody's list, and he did it twice, right? And
Consecutive.
Edge was one of yours honorable mention, but
Oh, yeah, he's my
but he
honorable
did it
mention.
once.
no, he
Or
cashed
he
in
did
twice.
multiple twice.
He
Yes.
only won it
Yes.
once, though. It was a crazy situation.
That's how we got his nickname, the Ultimate
That's
Opportunist,
right.
by the way.
That's right.
All right, well, I think that about wraps it up for us on the Schmozcast here this week. You can find us on social media. Check us out on Twitter, Facebook. Check out our YouTube to find us on demand, and Instagram as well at the Schmozcast. And all right, for Frony and Andre, I'm Chandler. Thanks for listening.
Hey, you're listening to 103.5 FM WLSP LP, Sun Prairie, Wisconsin.